tried to like look at it.
Since we're trying to use this convertible, you're going to rock in the shorts while I'm trying to bring the corduroy back in there.
Ooh, I like corduroy. Exactly.
Goes like here.
I wear shorts as long as I can.
Yeah, I'm using it right there.
That's just the usual.
So the press public hearing,
I just,
is on
you know, I actually need to do.
when
You know, I used to be quite the crazy.
I had PhD
Like in clothes, kind of clothes.
I don't know.
I kind of got just bored, and I just like, I don't have money. I need to go spend 30 money to get
I'm kind of like you're describing. It's like I wear the
Okay, like
same
11:30.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then after like 5 years,
So my only thing is that-
elbows.
So I
At
think
night,
the
you had
wellhead is the wellhead protection
I found
and recharge
that Banana Republic
pretty close.
has some great stuff.
The outline.
And like really good prices. I mean, really good stuff down there. It's ridiculous. I buy, because I don't wear ties, so I buy dress shirts down there that go with my slacks. Like the evening shoes and this work coat.
Yeah.
They got like 3 different sizes. You got like slim, regular, and athletic. You can get it to fit you.
It doesn't seem like this is a dig.
It's a good one corner too, yeah. I just find them to have more dressier stuff than
My biggest fear is this
so I get like
that situation because
man, it's like
if the PPP doesn't know what to do and say this is insane, why would we do this? This is crazy. And then we're trying to put a web on the center of a development. You hear what I'm saying?
Passion there.
God damn it, I always forget my pen. I don't know that you got to say it's insane. That's right, the bonfire. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. That is so ugly.
I don't know how they're doing it because this is Gills Neck Road. That means that has to be Kings.
That's Gills Neck Road? Yeah, that's Gills Neck Road. Yeah, that's how they're doing it. It's all behind the shopping center. This is all the shopping center, which is going to front on Kings Highway.
With an entrance off Kings Highway?
The entrance is going to be right there.
This is,
Is that going to be where Clay Road is?
this might be like,
Yes, it does align Coley Road.
this is all parking lot.
That's all parking.
So that's gonna add to the impervious
Well,
area.
that's already been done.
That's approved.
That
It's
has
this 10-acre parcel that they've never,
This is approved?
the top half.
the B1, it has been approved as for B1.
Okay.
But this 10-acre parcel, this is the one I objected to at the hearing, and they said, oh, because there was no plan, I asked, what are we going to do with that 11 acres? And I'll never forget it, Gene Byard said, we have no idea what we're going to do with that.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
They were just biding time, that whole project from 10 years ago.
Okay.
Three bedroom, two bedroom.
Hi there, Ted. Thank you for your phone call. I'm going to go ahead and send that out
Online with Clay.
Oh, okay, I thought you went out It's going out today. I wanted to hear from all of you. I talked to Amber
Okay.
and Khalil late yesterday, and I talked to Carolyn. Carolyn obviously responded right away.
I guess it's
I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it before it got out.
Right, thank you. Mayor, when you say B1, what do you mean?
B1 is
Zoning?
business,
Yeah.
commercial.
legend.
Non-disclosure. That's part of that now.
So are those homes?
I think there's.
No, that's part of it. Yeah, that's owners or whatever.
Henry needs one too.
That's the one you told me. He had a couple.
Oh, you can see that.
And I was gonna bring you some, is that cool? Okay. I figure if you're gonna give somebody something good as peppers, you should let them know first. It's likely.
King's community.
Yep.
Hi, Carolyn.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
We got a new clock.
Oh, yeah, we do. We've got a clock.
And it's
Oh
even,
my goodness, it's,
Is it accurate?
Was that a capital project? It was.
and it's even a large print, so those of us with aging eyes can see it. All right.
my eyes couldn't see that far when they were young, so it's, aging or just bad.
I've been wearing glasses since I was 13, so.
I was like 8.
Look at these.
Okay, so is everybody got Okay, looks like we are all here. It is, let me turn my mic on. Okay, so it is Thursday, October 21st at 9 a.m., and we are here for a capital projects meeting, and thank everyone for being here this morning. This is a project meeting that is an update on several things, and then a forward-looking discussion about what we might be considering for next year's budget. And some things that are were put in this year's budget that have not yet started. So I think we can go ahead and get started with the meeting. The first item on the agenda is streets and a Phase 25 project. Charlie, do you want to bring us up to date?
Yeah, just
It'll actually be your show today.
Yeah, no, it's just an update on the project. It's been under construction for about a month now. Yesterday, Jerry's completed all the paving on Carpenter Square. They're not done there. They have to clean up and get asphalt off manhole frames and covers and things of that nature. But they're generally done out there at Carpenter Square. They did all the they milled it. They made all the curb repairs that were necessary, and now they've paved it. So it looks really good, and we're very excited about it. So there's two other pieces to the project that are left that I don't have an exact date for the committee today, but if you recall, they're going to extend Tennessee Avenue slightly to cover that last parcel out there, and then also do the ADA work at Cedar and Savannah. So I'll stay in touch with Anne Marie on the exact. The Tennessee will take just one day to do, and you will see Shea Concrete out at the corner of Cedar and Savannah over the next week or so. I haven't gotten an exact date, but I'll keep you informed as when I find out what that is. So
I actually went out on Carpenter Square yesterday. It does look really good.
yeah, it looks really good.
It does look
So happy, yeah.
We'll have to look at that.
What we did have, what I did notice is there's quite a bit of residue on Park Avenue.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they'll clean that up.
They'll do the best. I mean, you're still going to see tire tracks.
Not Star Trek, so it's just some spillage.
Yeah, look at that. We'll make sure they get that.
Okay,
for
great,
sure.
thank you.
Charlie, what is the work being done at, by Shea? What is Shea contract?
So over at the corners of Cedar and Savannah Road,
Yes.
Across from the ice cream store, we're making those corner ramps ADA compliant. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what the work that they're going to be doing over the next week or so.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we're putting all new crosswalks in. That'll be the faux brick that matches the ones that Delta put in last year at two different intersections or crossings. And then we're putting an ADA ramp on the two-dip side. There's not a sidewalk there now, but when there is eventually going to be a sidewalk, we'll already have the ADA landing area there for the sidewalk.
And that landing area, regardless of whether there's a sidewalk, is still required, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't have a crosswalk without a landing area.
Right.
Yeah, just so the committee kind of knows, when we work on DelDOT maintained roads and their ramps like that, it's all got to go through their process of review and approval. Which it's not just DelDOT, by the way, it's their consultants from Baltimore sometimes, yeah.
Century Engineering's been doing a lot of
Yeah, they do, yeah, and we know those guys pretty well at this point.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then, want to talk a little bit about the Otis Smith?
Yep, so we're actually finalizing our design and getting ready to put the project out for bid. We've been through the project in this committee a few times. We're adding 27 spaces at Schley Avenue. We're cleaning up 27 spaces at Schley Avenue and creating 22 spaces at Smith Avenue. The Franklin piece of this has been taken out of the project, just so you know.
Good.
There's just a couple things left, and I know we're going to talk about the charging stations today, and down at Schley Avenue, that's the one pressing thing that I need to make sure that if we're going to put two more in there, I need to get it into the plan and into the design.
Wait, so why don't we actually talk about that charging station addition now? So
We need to, Press is going to have to leave. So.
Okay, so even more reason. So right now, I think everybody knows we've got 2 chargers at that parking lot, and those would be relocated with the reconfiguration of the lot. And there's a universal charger and a Tesla charger. What we were thinking was, because that is one area where you do see people charging. So we were thinking that might be a good location to add 2 additional chargers. If we want to qualify for the rebate through DENREC, they would both need to be universal. Teslas can use universal chargers. Non-Teslas can't use Tesla chargers. So the universal chargers are, that's what the state is really pushing, and that's what they'll, that's what we can get the rebate for.
Is your rebate 100%?
It's 90%, Melody? Is it 90%?
Yeah, it's up to 90%.
90%.
And Maria, there was a question, I think you might have got the same email from Mary Lou, who's not able to come.
Yeah.
She asked on these reimbursement grants, are there conditions, for example, does it limit our ability to charge at these stations in the future?
It does not limit the ability, we actually attended a webinar on electric vehicle charging stations, and it does not limit your ability to charge for charging. Right, so we could do that. So the city of Newark, and I can get more information, but they spoke on the panel, and they have chargers that they're starting to put in municipal lots, and they're not charging per kilowatt hour. What they're doing is they're increasing the amount that you have to pay to park in those spaces, so that they're collecting. I think that's one of those things we need to talk to the board about, because I think right now the lots that we have chargers
Are free.
are not paid lots.
Right.
So, and
Right, they're all free.
I believe you guys are using your green energy money to pay for that electricity, but as we expand a charging network, I think we need to talk about what the realistic expectations can be.
I want to say to that, like, it would seem like you would want to have one system no matter what lot, like you wouldn't have two.
Absolutely. It's got to be a universal system that we apply. And I think that, while we're talking about this, we're also talking about the Otis Smith lot. We ought to be talking
Right.
about, should we add 2 more there?
Right.
Because, there's only 2 charging stations there as well. And if
Exactly.
there's grant money available to get 90% reimbursement for, it would seem to me, since both of these lots are involved in this project, we ought to be talking about adding.
Does the state limit how many
It's
stations?
6, right?
Yes, up to 6.
Up to 6, is that per year or for the whole?
Right now,
For the program.
right now, the program is only authorized through next summer.
Okay.
So it's not it's 6, but I'm assuming that once they, have some, it's a relatively new program with the state. I think, so if we add 2 here and then 2 to Otis Smith, we could do 2 more in this year to get the reimbursement, which we can either talk about now or we can talk about when we.
Well, I think we should talk about it because press is here.
Right.
So if we could, I'm not trying to derail this
I just want
conversation.
to add one thing, because Austin's already looked into the Schley Avenue lot. I don't think we've looked into the Smith Avenue lot. When you go adding stations, it's not as easy as just like branching off conduit from the existing service to the other 2. Sometimes you got to go all the way back to the pole.
Thank you.
And also can speak to the one on Schley. I'm not totally up to speed on it because we just came up yesterday.
Is it all single phase or 3-phase?
It's all single phase.
Single phase, okay.
Yeah. So that it would have to be upgraded, and then obviously you would have to pour additional pads and then 2 more charging stations.
Right. So, and are they, excuse me, Ted, are the current stations, are they, Anne Marie mentioned that there's this green energy credit or something like, she called it something like that?
Your green,
Energy fund.
Thank you. Are those stations presently metered, or they are metered? So you're actually capturing the metered, what's actually consumed?
Yep.
And then getting reimbursed that way.
What we did, Darren did it before he had ended up leaving. He actually pulled an allotted amount out as a credit and put a rolling credit on each one. I think it was $1,500 apiece.
And how long ago was that established as far as the baseline of usage?
I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, because that would have been our 4th summer.
Right.
And we threefolded from when they were installed to what we are today. So if there was 300 kilowatt hours on 1 month, now we're up to 1,200 kilowatt hours.
Right, good, thank you.
Sorry. Come to the mic so we can get you.
I don't know if everyone knew, but somebody donated, a citizen.
Exactly.
We're gonna go there.
Paul.
Not only the stations, but the refund that he got from the state.
Right.
He gave that to the BPW to pay for the usage.
Yeah.
As far as it went.
Right,
And
thank
so,
you.
and have we exhausted that green energy monies, pretty much at this point?
The one that we recently, no, there's still a credit. I don't know what the
And
exact.
is that a renewable allotment you get every year?
No, we would basically have to go back, and it would be a continual thing if we wanted to do
And how much money do you get in it annually?
in the green energy. It's self-funded, so.
It is self-funded?
Yeah.
So they're refunding 100% in effect, or the credit is worth 100%.
You're funding it.
Yeah, we're funding it.
Right.
Yeah, it's
We're-
worth 100%.
Because you can
yeah.
use your green energy dollars for a number of things.
We did it for our streetlight upgrades. When we went to the Cobra Head LED
remember,
styles,
yeah.
that was one of the projects that it applied to.
Thank you.
One of the things, and obviously if we are going to move to where it's not free, where we're charging, there are a number of things we need to look at because they need to then be networked, kind of similar to our parking meters. In order for people to insert their credit card or pay by ChargePoint app or whatever, you need to have it networked, so then there's then there's the cost to that, so you need to build that into your fee structure. So I think, we can go forward if the board's on board with, kind of the short-term stuff, but I think long-term, if we're going to look at expanding the charging network, if the board's not going to foot the bill for the electricity, then we have a larger question of, the infrastructure to be able to collect the fees.
To support it.
Are they both going to be charged lots? Or are they free parking?
They're both
free
free
parking.
lots at this point.
Right.
Now, if we put them in another lot, whether it's the M&T lot or the 3rd Street lot or 1812 or Canalfront Park, those are all charged lots.
Right.
But they're only charged during the meter season. I would think
Right.
that if we were going to do this, the charging stations for the EV vehicles would have to be year-round.
Well, the charging stations would, the question is, do you charge, and so I think that's a discussion that the city and the board need to have together.
Right.
Because, over time, and I can send out the slide. Austin gave me the meter readings, and we put together, because I talked about our network at this thing that the university had, and the usage has gone up significantly.
Right.
So if you then, just by virtue of more EVs being out there, we're going to see growth.
Yeah.
If you then expand the network, you're going to see growth. So I do think we need to have that discussion. And so I'll send that slide out because it really shows you how, even without the full year being under us, we had the data through September, through the middle of September. I think it was the meter reading from mid-September. Literally, we're well above where we were even last year.
Yeah.
So I think from a cost of electricity perspective, if we're adding charging stations and more people are having EVs, we are going to have to talk about
Who's going to fund it?
who's going to pay for that.
Right.
And I think so, and I can talk in more detail to Jeff Martindale in Austin if you want. I can set up a meeting with Jeff. We can both talk about why they chose to do it the way they're doing. I think in Newark they determined that since they're charging for parking anyway, it was easier to capture it through that than to put in another piece of infrastructure and networking equipment that you then have to separately maintain.
And a lot are doing different rates. They're doing a whole different rate
Right,
structure
right.
than you'd be charging.
Well,
Right.
there's a lot to be discovered here, but one of the things that has helped us ramp this up is that when we were gifted those 4 initial ones, because we had 2 Tesla ones, we were automatically put on the Tesla's website for charging
Right.
stations. So people are aware when they go to look for a charging station that Lewis is the center. And
Right.
we also have other facilities around. There are charging stations at the ferry, there are charging stations at Wawa, so,
And at the outlets.
and at the
Wawa are all Tesla.
Right, so Tesla has so at Wawa, I'm pretty sure it's the superchargers. So what we have is level 2 chargers, which is great if you want to park, hook your car up to the electricity, go downtown, have a bite of lunch, and then come back. But if you want to equate it to being at a gas pump, the supercharger
Is what you need.
is 10 minutes gets you a 100-mile range.
Right. Right.
So, and if you have a Tesla and go to a supercharger, the technology they have recognizes your vehicle and automatically bills it to your account. So you don't have to, so I think from a practical standpoint, a lot of Tesla drivers are going to go to the supercharging stations for those types of reasons. But you don't have, I'm not aware of a large network of supercharging stations for the non-Tesla. And that's part of the market edge that Tesla has, is that they've got this network of
Right.
proprietary chargers that rapid.
Worked on, but it's.
Austin, are you aware of what the technical specs are for a Tesla supercharging station? I don't, this is not a loaded question.
That's,
Yeah,
that's a big service.
and that's something Tesla does itself. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
Right, but they're dependent upon the provider to be able to supply the electricity.
Oh,
So
right.
I'm asking for that technical side of it. Do you know what the electrical requirements are
I have
for
not
that?
done
Does any,
that.
Charlie, do you?
Well, since we have 2 Tesla charging stations, we already have gotten, somehow it's already been.
But that's level 2.
they're not superchargers.
They're not
They're
super,
sti-
we're just standard.
They're level
Okay,
2.
Okay.
And okay, I'll hold my questions.
Has there been an uptick in residential charging stations? Have people started putting those?
And drive their own homes.
Yes. It's a little bit harder to track those because if you're putting in
Right.
just a phase 2 or a level 2, there is really no sort of permit.
So they're not getting metered, but
And you can even, you don't need a level 2, you can
Yeah,
just
you've got
plug
your neighbor who
into,
has one.
there's adapters you can plug into the outlet,
equation
a
has-
regular outlet in your garage, as long as you don't have too much on the circuit. And if you're charging overnight, it won't charge it, it won't fully charge it if it's low, but it's enough to make sure you're topped off if you do it every night.
Okay, well, what the state rebate program is covering universal chargers.
Yes.
So that's the discussion here really is.
Yes.
We're not into the supercharger discussion at this point.
No.
And so, it seemed to me that it would be, it'd be prudent to look at the idea that we would put 2 at Schley, 2 more at Schley, 2 more at Otis Smith, and we would apply for the full amount that Melody's called to our attention for the 6 of them, and we can discuss where they would go.
are there any at the beach currently?
There are no, right,
the
and
beach.
so I was gonna say, if we're going to apply for, if we're gonna try to get rebates for 6, if we do 2 at Schley, 2 at Otis Smith,
Right.
and then either 2 at Beach 1 or 2.
Savannah Beach.
Thank you. Either 2 at Savannah Beach or 2 at 3rd Street lot. So I think you kind of need to have 2 together.
I think, that you could discuss back and forth. The thing about the beach, and I get your point, and that would be a good place to add, but I think the 3rd Street lot has more year-round applicability.
Right. So, and it might be something that we phase over time. I do think we need them at the beach. But, so one of the things, this is me thinking off the top of my head, so sorry if I know, right? One of the things, as we talk about the rebate, maybe one of the things we consider is that if we purchase the 6 chargers for those 3 locations, that we take half of that rebate to fund electricity. Because again, I think part of the challenge that we have is that green energy fund is not gonna supply limitless
Right.
power, am I right?
I would suggest that how we approach that, or at least consider approaching it, is if we have usage, and Austin has assured us that he's capturing monthly usage, you can quickly project out what the costs are associated with that. And I don't know how many kilowatt hours are being consumed per month.
The high is about for example, June was 1820. So
Okay,
that's about
1820.
$190
Right.
worth of usage.
Right. So, that,
Station?
Yeah, height of the summer.
right.
Right, but if you look at the growth, if you look, and is this thing not?
And then, yeah, you're right.
If you look at the growth of the demand,
3 years ago it was 140 kilowatt hours.
right, so,
Paradigm shift.
so we need to, if we're going to project outward, we need to build in some assumptions on what the growth would be, keeping in mind that one, we'll be adding more chargers, so, because I have actually, when I've walked from the maintenance department to City Hall, and I've walked past that, I have actually seen people drive through that lot and have to drive through because both chargers are occupied. Right.
I have another question for you. Charlie, speaking of Third Street, where we have just now finished a new parking lot, right? That's the parking lot that we're speaking of?
No.
Third is the central lot, not the M&T lot, but the Third Street
The
lot.
other lot that's
been there for a long time.
directly adjacent to the.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is still applicable. What have you looked at the lot there to see how we would actually provide a charging station there?
No.
Okay, so there's been no evaluation for that, correct?
Well, we're not going to make a decision today about where we'd put it.
I understand.
Okay.
But it's been suggested that that be targeted.
Yeah, that's a good point, because at every place where you talk about, like I said before,
Right.
where you want to put these stations, each lot's going to have its own unique service
Correct.
issues. So we need to look at it. I did want to let you know, as part of the parking lot project, what we are having the contractor provide is the foundation for the charging station and whatever conduit's necessary to get the power, but somebody, the board or whoever's got to pull the wire and set the station and purchase the station.
Okay, so I think where we are is that, I think what the discussion is, that you need to put 4 pads in to the Schley lot and 4 pads into the Otis Smith lot. Is that right?
Well, is it 1 pad per station, or is it 2? One pad for 2 stations?
I think it's 2 pads, for 2, so there'll be 2.
Okay.
But let me check on that.
Well, so I guess it's incorporating that to, in your bid docs, be able to incorporate 2 chargers at Smith and 2 at, 2 additional at Smith and 2 additional at Schley.
So I think this is a good point for maybe Austin to inform us as to what's at least necessary at Schley Avenue, because it's not just, like I said before, pulling a little bit of conduit and setting the foundation. We had to go back to the pole, correct?
Yeah.
Which we can do.
Please, go ahead.
We can make that as part of it.
Go ahead, press. Yeah, I know you have to leave in 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, the DPW hasn't gotten too far down the road on this. We're glad that the city's interested in doing this. We're very much in favor of this. So we'll work with you in any way we can to make it happen. We haven't worked it out either, but we have to work closely on this. So I think we can do it. I think it's a good thing. I'm glad the city's
Great, thank you.
interested in it. So.
I think we're all about the same point, Press. But I think with the rebate program that Melly's identified for us through the state, we don't want to miss this opportunity to take advantage of that, and we can, I think there's a lot of logistics and agreements in terms of how we're going to fund it and charge for it and all that we'll have to work on.
Right, and
This came up in our
In your
capital
budget
project meeting on Tuesday. We have some money in there in our capital budget going forward, and then the question came up, well, these are going to be ours or yours, or who's going to do it?
Right.
Well, we can move that around depending
Yeah,
on.
we can work on the detail.
We're thrilled, and we'll do anything we can.
just the timetable we're under for the rebate is we need to have it and submit by June.
Okay,
And- and-
we have to supply, we'll get back to you.
And that gives us, I think, time to work with. I don't think that, but it means we need to start working on it.
Right.
I have one last question about this. I know we've learned about the universal stations and the funding piece provided from the state. Does Tesla offer any kind of a program for a municipality to?
No, because Tesla has their own.
Right.
I
So,
understand
and
that.
that-
It's proprietary. and I
Right,
understand that.
so they, I mean, I think their marketing strategy on chargers is to have their network of superchargers that you can go and fill up quickly. And, I mean, you can just, on the screen in the car, you can, it tells you where all the supercharger
I
stations
understand.
are.
I was just wondering if they had created any kind of a partnership program.
They have not.
To reach into states or
I
municipalities.
can add some context to that. I attended a meeting on Tuesday night with the Center for Transportation and Environment. It's a group of, it's a coalition based in Atlanta of electric car and bus manufacturers as well as battery manufacturers. This issue was discussed at length. And and there were everyone from Tesla to bus manufacturers there. There are these rebate programs which are terrific, and municipalities should take advantage of them at this time, but they were near unanimous in that this is not going to be like the internal, the Ford motor, internal, combustion motor. We have to have an infrastructure of gas stations everywhere.
Right.
They're getting close to 300 miles charged batteries.
Right.
And their whole point was, most of these, vehicles are going to be charged at home. And that, people should take advantage of it now, but you're not going to need, 20 charging stations in Lewis and other places, because people will do it at home. And even for visitors, I actually asked a question. I said, well, what if you're in a resort area, people come, they're going to be able to get here, most likely, and get back on the same charge. So it was pretty fascinating discussion. So I think this is all great, but I just wanted to add that in context. Going down the road, I don't think we're going to need to have to spend a lot of time and resources on charging stations in Lewis.
Because you feel that most people
Thanks, Press. Appreciate it. Thank you, Press. I guess the one thing
That might be the element that we need to concentrate on, is how do you meter that?
Well, the
understand.
complexity actually comes because in different municipalities, you start to see the issue that is starting to come up where people are actually using their car as a battery to offload back onto the grid.
Right.
Then you start to question, like the consumer then asks, okay, so if I'm buying electricity, once I'm fully charged, then I start back feeding the electricity.
Right. Yeah.
cogeneration.
Yes.
That's very, very polite. But the one thing about the Third Street lot is all of the businesses on Second Street are rear fed. So the electric service on that, there's a pole right in the Third Street lot. So it should be fairly easy for you all to access electric off of that, I would think, off of that pole in the third, and the rear there. I mean, just, please look at it, and you may come back, but I'm aware that all the stores on that side of Second Street are rear fed.
But the focus is Otis and Schley.
For now, and we'll decide on the other one, but that particular one looks to me, the Third Street lot, the fact that it's year-round and the fact that the utility is already there makes it somewhat attractive.
May I ask one more question about these stations and the state program? Does the state offer any kind of, these benefits, are they available to commercial businesses? For example, if a hotel was to want to put in a station, or Airbnb, but
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
at the same rate?
They have slightly different,
Yeah.
Please
Go to the
introduce
podium.
yourself.
they have slightly different rules depending on what kind of organization they are. So they have several different categories that you could fall into.
Okay.
And then they have private versus public.
Okay.
And they have a whole matrix that they decide on.
75/90. So if it's a public access, commercial use, 75, workplace, 75, fleet, 75.
Okay.
Government nonprofit is 90, 90, 99.
Thank you. The reason I'm glad, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Austin, because
that kind of information might be very helpful for our hotels and so forth to, they might not be aware of this program.
We'll get it out.
And it would be very helpful to share that with them.
I think what we can do is we can use the chamber to get that information out.
Yeah.
You know, Betsy can put that out in a bulletin to the chamber.
Does the rebate cover the capital cost?
I thought that the
The
rebate
rebate
was
amount
just for the equipment, but we can.
Just the equipment.
Just the equipment.
Gotcha.
And we don't have a capital projection of what these costs, do we? Just the pad and the...
Oh, I had it somewhere. I can get that.
Okay. That would be
Because
helpful.
Newark had their numbers on what they paid. They purchased their chargers through the Sourcewell contract, and we're members of Sourcewell as well.
Is that the state program?
Sourcewell is a cooperative purchasing, a national
Okay.
cooperative purchasing thing that a lot of municipalities and other governments use.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Okay. All right, Charlie, sorry about but I think it was a useful discussion.
And I think we knocked out another agenda item.
I think we did too.
So,
Oh, yeah, the other one, yeah, down below.
yep.
Which one's that?
So just wrapping that up.
C13.
Okay.
Just wrapping the parking lot project up, assuming I can get this design for the stations done fairly quickly, I'm hoping to have it out to bid and a recommendation back to the council for award at your December meeting.
Okay.
It may be January, depending on how long this all takes.
Which lot is this?
Both of them, Schley and Smith.
Okay.
Which I don't think that's going to bother us at all, because they probably won't get started until
March.
January or February, March, yeah.
And can you remind me what the surface we're going to use at Otis Smith?
Yeah, so the base bid is porous asphalt with a bid alternate of the permeable brick pavers like we did on Coleman Avenue, something similar to that.
Thanks, Charlie.
So that would require the same kind of annual maintenance that we're doing on Coleman, is that correct?
Either one of those would, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that'll be handled through our street.
I understand,
program, so
but,
it's
right.
not-
It's not an additional.
vacuum.
I'm speaking
Yeah.
for Rick, but I don't think that that's something we wouldn't be doing anyway.
I'm going to ask a question because my memory is not reliable at this point in time on this particular issue. Regarding the Schley parking lot, I know there were some negotiations or discussions going on between the city and BPW about that whole parcel over there. Are we far enough along that we know that the parking lot is ours to manage and control and make the improvements? Are we 100% clear on that?
That's not been at issue. I think it's more what we do beyond that parking lot. But yes, we've been in agreement. We're not using any more land than we did. We're reorienting and beautifying, and then using that parking lot to provide space between the residential neighbors and the more intense use of where we do like,
Governmental use.
well, storage and lay down and construction.
And that, the overall discussion about the entire parcel is still in works.
Okay.
Yeah, that has not, okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Charlie?
Okay, so moving on to the Rollins room, Rollins Center restrooms. The project's 40% complete.
It's not on a slide.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's not on the slide, no. Everybody's aware, if you've gone by there, that the foundation's in, a lot of the rough in for the plumbing and the electric and other items are in, the concrete masonry walls, roof framing. The big things that need to be finished, of course, are the mechanical work, the electrical work, installation of the sprinklers, siding, doors, finishes, and just the rest of the project. We're 40% done. The completion date, as per the contract, is December 14th. I'm not going to sit here and commit to you that they'll be done by then. And I only say that because of their issues in getting materials and things of that nature. But they're right now, they're on schedule, but I just can't say that they're gonna get off schedule anytime in the next couple of months.
Well, and that's when you see regularly, every time we go to a meeting, you can see the little bit of progress that's being made.
Actually, they're making some very good progress. Yeah. I think, do you want to talk a little bit about what they've discovered in terms of damage?
There's been some water damage. Morgan's on the call.
See if you can promote Morgan Helfrich to a panelist. Right. Oh, did we?
Accept it.
Morgan, you there?
She's muted.
There she is.
Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Morgan,
Yes, so they did, where we have the new roof coming in over the restrooms, they had opened up the existing vertical portion of the shed roof that's there now, over the stair entry that's there now, and there was some water damage found in the sheathing, because we have two different roof conditions kind of coming together and kind of creating a drip action in the sheathing. The good news is that it has not affected the vertical framing. We believe that the framing is okay, so this would be just a sheathing replacement portion. I did instruct Harper & Sons to remove a portion of the gable face that comes into the side of that near the electrical mechanical room, and that sheathing was damaged as well. So right now we're trying to work on assessing how much damage we have to be able to find out how much needs to be replaced, because obviously we want to mitigate that from happening again in the future.
Great, thank you. I was over there yesterday to look at the brick and the mortar, and they were telling me that there is some additional damage that's been discovered in terms of shingles that are missing on the upper roof, and some damage to some of the siding, and perhaps Allison would like to speak to that. Allison's in the room. Allison, do you want to come forward and talk about what you
Are you
discovered?
aware of it? I don't think Allison's been made aware of it.
Actually, I think they told me you had called it to their attention that the siding was damaged.
Oh, there was only.
You need to
Come up
put
with
the
a-
mic.
That was the hot seat you're sitting in there.
No, there was two pieces of siding that had been damaged, and one was just cracked, and one was, there's another one that's still cracked, and it's all where they're doing the construction, but it can easily be replaced while they're putting up new siding now.
Yeah, exactly, but these are additional things that will probably bring about a change order.
Right.
That will add to the
Hopefully
contract.
it shouldn't be too much since it's
Yeah.
only.
Yeah, but they were telling me that there's shingles in the Penty, and there are shingles up on the upper roof that have been damaged on one corner. So we just need to make sure that all of that gets addressed while we have contractors there.
Morgan, may I ask you a question regarding the water damage? Is there any intel that you could suggest that would have caused this water damage? In other words, what I'm thinking of, is there a gutter system on this? I think there is, as I recall, around that where the contractor's doing the work. Is this attributable to a gutter system that has failed or not been maintained? What is causing this leakage?
I'm not sure if I can see your screen, if Charlie has up the picture of the construction image that he has in the PowerPoint, but that might be good to actually look at if you are,
That's on the front
which was the
page.
front page, I believe, Charlie? So if we can, it's probably not the greatest picture to see that, but it's actually on the other side of this. You can see the gable face that has the vent. See how it's kind of coming into that shed roof?
Yep.
That fascia piece is actually dying into a vertical piece of siding. And it does not, obviously, you don't put gutters or anything on a gable fascia piece. So that is the culprit. It's in my opinion, an original design feature for how the roofs align. So what I was hoping that I could do is check to see if the brick went behind all the way up to that fascia gable piece so that we could cut it off, so that would not continue to happen in the future. Unfortunately, the brick does not continue up, so we need to figure out a different solution to the water draining down the face of that angled gable end into the shed roof, because that's still an issue. So we're working on that to get you an answer.
Right, thank you.
But we understand it's a problem that we should probably address so that it doesn't happen again.
Right. Thank you.
And the damage to the roof shingles or the missing shingles, is that, for example, attributed to, for example, wind? Or is that, is the roof at the end of its useful life and that the building needs to be re-roofed? Do we know?
I'm not sure that I was aware of the roof shingles yet, but if it was just found on the low slope portion of the shed roof that was there now, that's pretty typical in a low slope for shingle application due to the wind in your location. We have gone back in the same fashion with the similar, obviously, sloped roof configuration. So there shouldn't be any change order that I would assume for them fixing the shingles that are off on that low slope piece, since they're redoing the roof right adjacent to it. We haven't heard that they were charging for that at all, so hopefully they won't. Usually Harper & Sons is pretty good about fixing what they find along the way. Obviously, the water damage is a little bit more of a conversation that we need to have.
Okay.
The good news is Harper & Sons started the project out with over a $4,000 credit to the project for the sprinkler system. So right now, we're actually under the original contract amount on this. We do have some change orders that are pending, which were things like the water meter purchase and the additional brick veneer below grade, but even that was kind of canceled out with that credit. So the only thing that I know of will be this water damage change order, which we don't have a PCO on yet, so we're not sure exactly the extent. And then also reconfiguration of the Cat 6 cable that was added sometime after we did the original field measure, and we're trying to get clarification on that as well.
Thank you.
All right. Charlie, go ahead.
Okay. So that's the status of the Rollins room, and then I'll turn it over to Anne Marie for the police station.
And I'll turn it over to Allison. As Allison comes up, I'll explain. Just to go back, if you recall, we had GMB do a space study of the police station and in terms of meeting the needs of the department as it currently stands and going forward. The conclusion was that we are or have outgrown the police station, and that we need to look at what our future is in terms of a new station. So I think most of you, if not all of you, have toured the police station, and you know that there are a lot of issues that, regardless, we need to at least get it through the next 5 to 7 years while we plan for what comes next. So we've had Allison go through and with the chief, and we've had a number of meetings, and we've talked about the interim changes we need. I think we determined that it's about a $90,000 to $100,000 fix. So do you want to come up, Allison, and talk about the changes? I do believe there's money in this year's budget that we can move forward. Lorraine's going to check. But, again, these are things that, regardless of whether we use that space for police or for something else in the future, need to be done.
Yes. So I took a tour with Chief Spell, Lieutenant Zotto. We walked through there. A lot of it's cosmetic because we can't really move walls. So a lot of it's just to make the department function better, work area spaces work better, bring things up, clean things up. So we looked at all the offices, and we went through and came up with new furniture layout. But the furniture is very old and dated, and it would give more space in the patrol room for the patrolmen to work and share kind of office spaces. They came up with new configurations for some of the offices. The sergeant's office will probably be combined for a sergeant detective to work, and they'll make their office for evidence. I think a lot of this too is to upgrade to where they need to be for their standards, for their accreditation, so locking more things up, making things more secure. So we have options for new furniture and furniture layouts. We have options for flooring. A lot of the flooring in there is chipped up and old, so we have new flooring options. Painting the police department, the paint's old and chipped, so we have an option for painting, doing that in-house with our guys. We also have, again, to kind of bring it up and make it more efficient for the police officers, their lockers downstairs, reconfiguring, taking the weight room and turning that into a changing room for the men, taking the men's old locker room and turning that into the women's locker room since it's bigger. The women's locker room is very small. So kind of flip-flopping that around. And then also got pricing for new lockers. Ocean View Police Department have these lockers. They bought them probably about 5 or so years ago. They are specifically for police departments. They're wider. They have more storage for all of their uniforms, everything that they carry on them. And they also have electric in them, so they can plug in their radios and all their stuff, so everything's secure in the locker, nothing's sitting outside.
Allison, excuse me, you mentioned Ocean View. Was that just the example of what you're citing, or are they offering theirs up as used?
No, it was an example.
As an example
So we
only.
could see, and I talked to the
Right.
Ocean View Police Department and got where they got theirs from.
Yeah,
So.
thank you.
Yep. So I went to the same vendor that Ocean View got theirs from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And will that be enough to have each officer will have their own locker, or would it be like a hot bunking kind of situation?
No, each officer should have their own locker.
Okay.
Yes.
And these lockers, would they be transportable if in fact a new facility is constructed?
Yes.
They'd be moved to the new location?
Yep, the only thing that would, just at the new location would be the electric. Just that there's a certain
Right.
way that they have to set up the electric for these lockers.
Sure.
But everything else is portable.
Right.
Yes.
And with these new lockers, if we were to use them in the existing weight room, is there a requirement or need for additional new circuitry to be pulled to support the, do you know?
Yes, yeah. There's they would have to, the electrician would take the current outlets there.
Right.
And they call it a whip system. Basically, you're just lining the walls with new outlets.
Okay, thank you.
And Maria, if they're removing the weight, are they getting a credit currently for gym memberships or anything like that?
They don't get any,
I think that we should consider doing that if we're going to remove their weight room, because I think there should be an expectation that part of the job is physical, and, you know, I don't know if there's a way to...
We've looked into that in the past, and there's been credits available or discounted memberships, but I think the participating gyms were located so far away that the men and women were not using them. Is that right, Chief?
I think that predated me even, Mayor, but
come to the mic, please. Sorry.
I believe our health insurance does offer some recognition of that. Isn't that right, Ellen Maureen?
I believe they do. The locations, you can double check on.
Yeah, most of them do.
I'm not sure if they're in the area.
I'd be surprised if, since we participate in the state healthcare program, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some opportunity there for whatever gyms are participating or facilities are participating to offer a discount for our men and women. Okay.
Would that make sense if it wasn't close enough for them to?
Well,
yeah, if that's the problem, you know, maybe just some sort of...
we'll need to check into it.
Well, and I get the impression that most of our officers have a certain gym they go to, and that's where they're going to go. I mean, I don't know that, I don't know that we would get participation if they have to change where they go, because most of the officers that work out regularly are pretty tied to where they work out. That's the
I would agree.
feedback I've gotten from officers. So,
And isn't it, I seem to remember last year when we talked about this issue, that it was even there was doubt that planted in my mind that the existing weight room was even used.
Oh, it's not.
It's not used. Right, so it
When they use
basically
it, it makes
just,
sense.
it's just storage space right now.
Come April, we may have an opportunity to.
Yeah, no, we do, right, you say come April, that's the budget, but it's also, we're coming up on getting contract renewal.
No, that's what I meant.
Oh, that is what you meant, okay. So we, shortly after the beginning of the year, will initiate the negotiation process with the Teamsters for the new police contract. So one of the things that we did add in the last contract was the cardiokinetics, which is where they get their health assessment.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things we could look at adding into the new contract, which would be, I think, a benefit to the officers, is some sort of a reimbursement or partial reimbursement for fitness club memberships.
I think along with that, we ought to make sure what's available through the state healthcare program to determine what gyms are participating and what the distance is from the city, so that, most of our officers don't live in the city. If they live in Millsboro, there may be a gym in Millsboro that is available. So I think we just ought to check that out.
Bottom line is it should be available.
Yeah, okay. All right, Allison, what else do we have?
What else do you have, Allison?
A lot of other small stuff is cosmetic, new sinks in the kitchen, new countertops in the locker rooms.
Flooring.
Yeah, flooring throughout.
Mention that, yeah.
And
Ventilation for the main level restroom, which currently the restroom is right next to the break room and there's no ventilation.
No ventilation.
Yeah.
Yeah, not code compliant.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm still going to get some more updated pricing on flooring for downstairs in the basement, since we had to rip up the weight room floor due to some flooding.
Right.
So we're going to look at some options of doing either new VCT or just epoxy and coat the basement floor.
Allison, may I ask you please about the flooding you just mentioned? I know in the past there's been a problem with the sump pumps not working correctly or just not working that are located in the basement. And has that problem been addressed so that
Yes.
they have, and we are 100% certain?
Well, the sub pumps, both of them have been replaced. We have 2 new ones down there.
Okay.
And we also put them on separate breakers, because that was a problem too.
Okay.
But we had G&B come down and look at the French drain or drainage around the inside as well. And look at.
And the roof drainage.
outside. Yeah.
So part of the thing that GMB found, and Morgan, are you still with us?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm here.
Well, one of the things that GMB found is that all of the roof drains go into the sump pump.
Right.
So when you look at the amount of roof drainage, it's all coming into the sump pump. So if the sump pump doesn't function for whatever reason, and that's what happened in August. So Morgan, do you want to talk a little bit about the assessment that you did? And just so we're clear, this implementation of this is not included in the short term. That is a separate thing that we kind of need to scope out. We just got this earlier this month and haven't been able to go back and review it with them. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you found?
Sure. We basically did a roof drainage calculation also to make sure we even have enough downspouts for the 100-year storm plus, because obviously the 100-year storm pretty much happens every other month now, it seems like. So one of the suggestions is to add additional downspouts and reroute where the water is being taken off of the roof. That is a complex conversation if we want to reroute it, to the storm system in a different location on the site, or if we wanted to do something surface, that could be a conversation with rain barrels. We're not quite sure exactly how the city would like to proceed, but we gave some suggestions there. We also found one wall of the basement that seems to be open, and it's graded, the sidewalk is graded backwards, and water is flowing towards that wall, and possibly water is going vertically down that wall, which could also be mitigated as one of our suggestions by regrading that area and sealing up the foundation wall there. And then we also had, separately from that report, we had Diamond State engineering come in, and they noticed that the original design for the basement had a dehumidification system that should be running at all times. It's not currently running. So the dank, musty smell in the basement when you do have a flooding issue could easily be addressed, with, the system that is there currently. So one of the final suggestions that if that none of those issues are taken care of in advance of this effort that Allison was speaking of, was to elevate the new lockers on a curb system so that if you do have a flood in the future, that you would not be damaging those brand new lockers, and they could be moved to a new location or a new site, and not be disturbed if it happens again.
Morgan, I have another question for you. When it was discovered that the roof drains were draining to the sump pumps that are located in the basement of the police station, and we know that the pumps were, when they were operable, that they would have been, let me phrase my question this way. Have the new sump pumps been sized to meet the demands of pumping the water that comes off the roof that is moved into the where the sump pumps are located, or do we just replace with the same size sump pumps?
I think Allison might have to answer that question. I'm not sure we did that calculation on the sump pump replacement for whatever was replaced, but we did talk about having a redundant pump in the event that one goes down, that another one would be able to handle the additional effort. But I'm not sure I have an answer for you on that.
Allison, do you?
I can tell you that the pumps that we replaced we did not go up a model or down a model. They're the same models.
Okay.
I can't say those models were priced out with the roof back in the day. I don't know that, but they are two brand new ones. We did put them on separate breakers, so if one goes down, the other one should go on. We fixed the alarm tree, so when it gets to a certain level, alarm should go off. So we did as much as we could down there with what we had.
I'll just add that, what happened in August was, what did we calculate? It was near about a 100-year storm, but you had problems with the pumps actually operating at the same time.
But they've changed that.
A little issue with it that had to get fixed.
Microphone, Allison. Sorry.
How long did you change out the pumps?
One got changed out when we had the issue. The company came, I called them up, and they came right out and changed the pump out. And then the other one got changed out probably 6 months before that, 7 months before that. So they're all very new.
Right. So sort of to answer your question, I think with the pumps that are in there now, as long as they don't break down in the middle of a 100-year storm like they did before, they're going to handle the majority, if not all of that water. And we're also talking about eliminating a lot of that runoff from getting to those pumps. So that's going to be an additional insurance policy against these heavy storms.
Yeah, I think if you do eliminate some of that water, because right now they do run 24/7. If you go down there, there is a constant flow of water in there all the time.
Okay. And what I'm speaking to, of course, is the capacity of the pump. You know, if it's a half a horsepower pump that's in there, or you measure in horsepower or by gallons that it pumps, whatever it is, if it's not sized correctly, then in fact it will run 24/7. And that might. And then when you throw in the event of a storm event and the roof draining into that same pit, that's a lot of water to move.
Yeah.
It seems to me that this latest discovery about the sidewalk and the dehumidifier and the new flooring that we're talking about needs to be addressed as part of whatever we do there, even though that was not originally part of your discussion. Because to add the cost of putting in curbs to put the lockers up on and everything else, you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on things, and you're not really addressing the problem of the long-term use of this building and space. Right. So I think we would be remiss to go ahead with some of these things if we didn't also do the sidewalk that's pitched the wrong way, and we didn't do the other things that are necessary.
And we expect to bring that back, but we didn't want everything to wait because, I mean, at this point, there are issues, and right now, again, every water intrusion event we've had has been pumps, at least one of the pumps not working. Right. So if we start with these things, while that's going on, work with GMB to determine what the best ways to deal with the sloping sidewalk, the roof drains, and come up with a plan that then we would implement, you know, in the spring, once we have time to get it designed, then, you know, then we're in a better position. I don't want to hold off everything for that because, again, their workspace is
I completely agree. I don't want to hold off at all. But what I'm saying is it'd be foolish to put new flooring down in that basement until you have addressed the exterior water problem.
Right. And also the dehumidifier problem.
I think you've got to address the cause of the problem rather than just
a Band-Aid
dressing it up.
So we, and I think that, I think that we are, and I think, Charlie, I mean, one of the things and I'm looking at Charlie, but one of the things I did want to say, one of the things we've talked about in terms of flooring is to go to an epoxy flooring that would do better with that, but also, I think that we have a good degree of confidence that we're not going to continue to see the water intrusion because the pumps are functional.
That's fine.
I mean, what are your thoughts, Charlie? I mean, right now, there's no floor in the weight room.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's, I think, aware that we have this whole French drain system on the inside
Part of the foundation that just, any water that gets in there ends up in the pumps and then it just overloads. So, like I said before, I think the replacement of the pumps is a huge help, that we have a solid pump system that's going to be operational during a storm event. And yeah, we need to look at removing some of the water that gets to those pumps. How we do it and when we do it, you know, I'm kind of at your...
It seems to me one of the things we could do very simply is divert the roof drainage right to be surface rather than running into the sump pumps. Well, and that in and of itself will take care of most of the water problem you're seeing.
Yes, but the other side of that is where on the surface are you going to divert it? Because
you've got this side of the building, Emery, that runs right onto the parking lot, and there's a catch basin right here.
Right, so the problem is, again, when you look at slopes and everything, if you divert it to the parking lot and we end up with water running over the parking lot in freezing temperatures and we create an icy condition, I think we need to make sure that we do this in a way that doesn't create other problems that we're not anticipating. And
that was all sort of discussed when we were preparing our
report. I think, Mayor, we've got ideas, we just need to finalize what we need.
What I'm saying is we need to get this cart going with the horse rather than the horse driving the cart.
I understand, yeah.
Well, and I guess so the question is, do we want to start on some of these things like ventilation, the upgrade of the restroom outside the break room, the flooring on the main floor? You know, we don't have to do it all at once. Some of these things can start to move forward while we're figuring those other things out so that we can then be ready to implement those things. But right now, especially, you know, right now the conditions, especially because of the flooding we had in August, the conditions are worse than they were when we started this.
And what I started this conversation with was, let's do everything above grade. Okay? Everything on the first floor, move ahead with.
Okay.
but.
I forgot to mention one thing about the report, that we did find deflection in the basement slab in the weight room because of the water that was actually not coming through the wall, but from underneath the foundation and pushing, we believe it's pushing the slab up.
Wonderful.
So the structural engineer actually suggested that the only way, or one of the way to mitigate that was to actually pour concrete on top of the slab that's there now, which would also create a curb for new lockers. But that, I probably should have started with that. We do believe that there's a structural issue with that floor based on the groundwater table, which we haven't verified the groundwater table yet, but that would be the next course of action before we make a suggestion and price it out for that. But I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Morgan, there's not a sump pump in that area where the weight room is that correct? There's not a sump pump?
Correct.
Right, okay. Okay, I have one more question for Morgan. I think I heard you say something about the dehumidifier system is either it's not working or it's not working enough hours of the day. I'm not quite sure what you said. I apologize.
So Diamond State Engineering just did a cursory walkthrough with Anne Marie recently. They weren't paid to do this. They just kind of off the cuff looked at the building in addition to the existing mechanical design, which it's been some time, and they noticed that the design says that dehumidification system needs to be running all the time via the boiler.
Right.
It's not running, so therefore the dehumidification system is not working there.
And my question.
We haven't gone to the second stage of that yet to figure out what the problem is there, but it could be an easy fix.
Right.
I'm hoping that it is, but until we have a little bit more information about what was actually installed versus those design drawings, which could be completely different, I think we need to find that out.
Do you need authorization from us to be able, or from anyone at the table, to be able to conduct that part of the study?
Well, I was going to ask, there's suggesting two ways to go about that. The first one would be to take just Diamond State's initial suggestion to have the mechanical sub come out and look at what you have via Allison first to see if they can easily identify the issue, which might be more of a cost-effective solution. The alternative path would be to get a proposal from Diamond State Engineering to do a whole building analysis of the mechanical systems, to kind of do a life cycle assessment since it's been there for a while, to see what needs to be upgraded and when, and kind of put a cost or a value to that, to put it on a capital projects list for the future.
Okay.
But yes, I need direction.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is there a breakdown in the amount of money that you're proposing to spend in terms of what would be fixed cost into the building and what would be removable? You've talked about furnishings and lockers, both of which could be removed and taken to a new location. Is there a separation of those two items so we know what we're sinking into the building and what we could move to another location? I think that would be helpful for for us to know.
You have your list of the costs.
Yeah, so basically what would be removable would be the lockers.
And they're like $46,000.
They are.
Just to remove. Wow.
And that's just the material cost for the lockers, is that correct?
Yeah, lockers are $46,562.74. And that includes delivery, installation, and a base.
Okay.
And the
How many lockers would that get you?
That is for 17.
17, thanks.
Okay.
The office furniture, and that was about $24,000, could also, most of that could be moved.
So what we're talking about then is,
Yeah, 24.5.
so what you're talking about is $70,000 worth of things that could be moved. And you're talking about $100,000 roughly, give or take, of the budget. So we're only talking about $30,000 worth of improvements to the building. And that assumes that we use in-house painting.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Did you get a bid for painting? I think you should get a bid for painting it versus what it would, how much manpower we would have to defer and the workmanship that would go into it. I think it should be bid, just so you have an idea, and then figure out whether we have the manpower in our maintenance department to take this on.
Well, we've discussed that. I mean, that's been part of our discussion, and Rick, I don't know if you want to jump in on this at all. If so, you need to come to the mic. But based on the discussions, my understanding was that, I mean, and I asked the question directly, do we have the staff to capacity and staff to, one, oversee the various contracts? The answer was yes. And then, can we do the painting ourselves, or, do we need to contract it out? And do you want to?
Well, I mean, like the mayor said, it'd be good to get a price elsewhere, but if we were doing it in-house, we had that conversation, and it had to be a winter project, which that's where we're coming on. We throw trash Monday, Tuesday, so it had to be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I had talked to Chief, when it is able to paint, can we come in at night? So I would switch a couple guys to come in at night to paint, so they're out of the way, nobody's on the phone, nobody's there. It can go quicker. We can get it done to a fact, yes. We've talked about that, and like I said, if we do it like a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and work the hours.
I'd want to do it the least expensive way possible, but still get a quality job.
Yeah.
And you have to look at what other responsibilities you all have in the winter. You've got a lot of responsibilities, snow removal, other things like that crop up.
The unknown.
But you also have maintenance activities that you do in the winter.
Yes.
We have a full-time staff in the winter. I assume that this is a project that would be added to the regular work level that keeps that full-time staff busy year-round.
Yeah, if we're trying to keep it in-house, like I said, trying to keep it as cheap as possible, then yes, it would be an extra add-on, but we would do our part to try to help and accomplish it.
I agree. Thank you.
Yes, to get a price elsewhere, and she can work on that too.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
It's all about money.
Well,
Okay, it's all about money, but it's all about getting it done efficiently and quality work.
Right.
And also, how much look, I could do a lot of things at my house that I pay to have done.
Exactly.
But I don't have the time. It just pulls me away from other things that I need to do. And so I'm just asking the question, is that, are we pulling too much manpower away from other activities that we have that need to be done in the winter?
And we did have that discussion, so, I mean, again, it's up to mayor and council, but, based on the discussions we've had, staff has indicated that we have the capacity to take it on.
Okay, so let's get a bid.
I agree, we need the bid. The other question I have is, it's been suggested that the flooring would be, one of the options is that in the weight room, or maybe throughout the building, I'm not quite sure if we're replacing all the flooring throughout the building or just in the lower level. I don't care who answers the question. But ultimately, my question is, if we go with an epoxy floor, is the epoxy something that would be contracted out, or is that again something that our people would do?
Yeah, something like that, we're going to contract out.
You're going to contract
that has to be contracted.
Okay.
Yeah, the epoxy floor would just be the basement.
Right.
We're looking at just doing that for the basement.
Right.
On the first floor, we were looking at putting carpet tiles similar to this in the control room with the new furniture. And in the sergeant's office and the detective's office, since their carpet's so old, we were looking at putting in new VCT tiles in the kitchen area and the half bathroom.
Can you just say what VCT is so everybody knows?
It's your tile, it's your sticky tiles, pretty much.
Oh,
Right,
Sticky
vinyl tile.
yeah.
Right.
And I think we're looking at putting carpet in the administrative area as well to kind of dampen the noise in there as well.
There's nothing to be done to the second floor of the building, is that right?
No, we weren't doing anything upstairs
Okay,
on the second
fine,
floor.
thank you.
Chief, I have a question for you. When we bring, I don't care if it's in-house or contractors in to work in your workspace, it seems to me that we would be displacing the work areas for your staff. How disruptive is this going to be for you, and what's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that as well when we met. It's going to be painful for us, I fully admit that, but the prospect of having, an eventual
The end result.
nice work space with adequate lockers, adequate desk areas, is worth the trade-off of 2 to 3 months of pain, which is probably what it's going to be.
Right.
But it's worth it for us, and then, we're specifically targeting this winter as a good time to make this happen.
Okay. I have another question regarding the furniture that's presently in the police station, the cubicles that I remember seeing and so forth. Do we have any idea how old that furniture is?
Very.
Yeah.
Everything over there is old.
I understand that.
It was a secondhand system bought from a business.
Okay, so it was used when it was repurposed. Where I'm going with this question is that do we have for example, an amortization schedule set up? Would we set one up where if we're buying new furniture, if it takes us 7 years to construct a new office for a new station, what is the life expectancy of that furniture 7 years from now? In other words, are we really going to be having to buy new furniture at that point in time? Is it a half-life? Does anyone have an idea?
So this is one of the things we discussed in that, one, the furniture could be repurposed for new offices, whether it's offices in this building or whether it would be moved to a new patrol room and a new station. I mean, that was one of the things that we discussed was to spend this kind of money on furniture, we need to know that we're going to use it for more than 5 to 7 years. And I say 5 to 7, that's optimistic. I mean, we don't have a location at the moment.
Exactly.
Right.
I think you're going to be pushing it to.
So I think there's a good chance that the furniture costs would be, a sunk cost at this point in time. We would not. There's a good chance that would never be put on a truck and moved to a new location.
Right, but I do believe that even if it wasn't moved, it would be repurposed here.
Okay. I think we're getting way down into the contracts here, so.
Well, and the other thing is, I know we wanted to try to be done by 11, and we've still got a lot to.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Charlie, can we move on to George H.P. Smith Park, or is that going to be a Janet story?
I got another hour's worth of discussion.
I know.
Go, Charlie.
So do some speed talk.
So Janet, can you just come up and give us a brief update on where we are with the project at George H.P. Smith Park? Sure.
Right, okay.
You can take it off. Okay. Yes, so
hello, good morning. For the Phase 2 of George H.P. Smith Park, that included the ADA walkway, the installation of a swing set, installation of a pavilion, and new fencing. So where we're at right now is the ADA walkway into the park that goes to the current playground, and the newly installed swing set has been completed. It
looks good.
It really does look good.
It looks
Thanks. I think Dana Cooper did the work for the sidewalk, and he did an excellent job. Excellent job. Kind of on a side note, the city did put new safety surfacing on the playground, which was dangerously low, so that was done through a community service project with staff.
What is that?
It's an
engineered wood fiber.
Oh, is that what that is? I went over there to touch it the other day.
Yeah, so those, I'm sorry.
I don't want to gloss over that. I mean, so we had about 10 city staff members that came out on a Saturday morning on their own time to spend a couple hours spreading the mulch to have 8-inch thick mulch. If we had a contractor do that, that would have been a couple $1,000s. So that was something that Janet and Shelby coordinated. Our employees had said that they wanted to do a service project for the city, and they coordinated it, and we had a number of staff come out and donate their time, including Ellen Lorraine's daughter.
Thank you.
It looks good. It really looks
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
So I have a proposal for fencing. We're looking at a white vinyl fence versus the wooden fence that is existing, and that is because of the cost of wood now, supply chain, and the fact that they're not putting arsenic in the wood any longer, so it doesn't last as long. It bends, it twists. They put a fence in for a customer, and within 4 months, it had distorted. So we're going to do the white vinyl.
Is it like?
Where is this? I'm sorry, go ahead.
It will be the same style.
Okay, good.
Of 3 or 4 rails.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I was hoping that's what you were
And
saying.
we're not putting gates on. I know there initially were gates on the wooden fence, and those were all removed. I think it kind of could turn it into a dog park.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
so-
Those gates up there, it becomes that.
Right, so those openings that are currently existing where there were gates will just be openings for access into the park, into the playground. There is an 18-week time frame for the fencing, and the proposal was signed September 10th, so that's a delay. We're working on the gazebo. I went down to Bethany Beach and looked at a gazebo that was done by Polygon. It's beautiful, it's very impressive. I talked to the city manager down there, they were very happy with it. There weren't any issues with, installation. So what I did find out is that Polygon will no longer do the base for the pavilion. So I'm working with Dana Cooper to see what he will do for that, and we're in those initial discussions. So we had an extension on the DENREC grant. This is a matching grant. We had an extension in June because of COVID, and there were a lot of requests for extensions on projects. We took a 6-month extension. Obviously, that's December 31st. We're probably not going to make that mark. I've already talked to DENREC, let them know where we are, what the delays are, and they said just in December submit another extension request. He's had other requests of the same sort, so I think we'll be okay. I'm pushing as much as I can.
Janet, where is this gazebo that you're speaking of to be placed? What's the location?
So the park commissioners and I have gone out. We think it would be great if, for example, the farmers market is in George H.P. Smith Park, and they do demonstrations, they set up tents. If they were interested in using the gazebo for families that have the children in the playground, so we're, trying to get it in as close a proximity. But what we're looking at is the corner closest to the parking area for the school, the old consortium. In that corner, there is a large tree.
Over by the bocce court?
Yes, and that would also give shade for the bocce players.
So the bocce court is right here.
It would be inside the fence.
Coming off of the parking lot?
Right, inside the fence.
Not the parking lot that's on DuPont, it's the parking lot around the school.
Around the, right.
That's right.
And we're also considering putting electric into the gazebo. The gazebo down in Bethany had, I think, 8 or 10 electrical outlets.
it needs to be done.
I don't think we need that many, but we do.
We do need electricity.
We need electricity in there, yeah.
Well, especially if it's going to be, if it could be used for demos.
For the farmer's market.
And is this gazebo the same size as, for example, the one that is in Canalfront Park?
Actually, it's very different. When I think of a gazebo, I think of like Mary Vessel's Park, Canalfront Park.
Right.
This is, it's a structure that has a concrete base. Neither of those two gazebos have the concrete base.
So is it more like the pavilion that's already there?
It's more, thank you, it's more like the pavilion that's on Blockhouse Pond Island.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
yeah.
And the idea is that you would have then picnic tables or something underneath it, is that correct?
Certainly, yes, and have shade for families. They can, bring picnics in, sit and watch their children play.
You envision that it will be connected to the Fred Thomas parking lot by a sidewalk or something? Or how is a person, I'm thinking of, what's going to happen is somebody's going to want to go in there with ADA usage. So they're not going to roll somebody in a wheelchair across the grass. So how's it going to be connected to whatever parking?
a path?
Yeah, that's a cement path. That's a path right now,
I don't
isn't
think
it?
so.
No, there is no path on that side, so.
That's right.
Right, so currently the path goes to the swing set and to the playground. The way Dana has done the grading up to the playground and turned it, we could do a path around to the pavilion.
I think you need to anticipate that somebody would want to get there with limited mobility.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
Or do something from the other section of the parking into the park, and I think that might be a shorter distance. But that chain link fence is the school's fence.
Right.
So,
That's why I ask, because
Yep.
that's a school, that fence belongs to the school.
right.
And knowing, I don't know what their plans are. I'd have to go back and look at the plans for the new fields that are going, the intramural fields that are going to go there. They may be taking that fence down, but we ought to look at how that all coordinates, because the use, as those two schools get built, the usage of the Fred Thomas parking lot is going to change a lot.
It will change, right.
And if I remember correctly from the school plans, they do plan on putting in restrooms over near that Thomas school. I believe that's part of their improvement plan. Does anyone else recall that?
Well, the question is, what would be the accessibility? They are talking about restrooms on there, but they are, what would be the accessibility to it? If it's only during school hours,
Right.
it wouldn't serve the public.
Well, and
I think they actually spoke to that, the school board. I thought the school,
I don't know. We'll check it out.
I don't know. But Harry Kaiser brought up a good point. We do have a portable toilet right outside at the entrance to the playground. And now that the ADA walkway is there, we should have an ADA portable toilet there as well. So that was something that I was going to be talking about in the budget.
Remind us the size of the grant that you're working with.
It's a matching grant, $35,000, so 70.
So 70,000.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, thanks a lot,
Thank
Shannon.
you.
Appreciate that.
All right, Charlie, you got 15 minutes.
All right, so I just wanted to give you an update on the Monroe
Yeah, you get to the slides.
Railroad Adams Avenue Revitalization Project, and we've just kind of gotten cranked up on the planning of it. So we've had internal meetings at GMB, we've flown a drone and have that all on video now so that we can utilize that aerial videography in whatever way we want. We've actually created or are creating 3D fly-through modeling. And this is all in anticipation of the stakeholder workshop that we're going to have, because it's such an important corridor and there's so many different people who will be affected and so many different users of the corridor that we want to get a lot of input. Mayor, I think you were part of the Rascal meeting where the UD, what do they call themselves? The group, what?
The Sea Grant?
No, it's the group that did the thing up in...
You're talking about the living shoreline, yes.
No, it's the person, what's her name, that did the whole...
Yeah, it's Jules Bruck.
Yeah, Jules Bruck. Yeah.
Dr. Bruck.
Yeah, so we're working on a stakeholder meeting similar to what they do so that we can get a lot of input from various people. So in addition to that, we're contracting with Atlantic Surveying and Mapping to get the right-of-way surveyed and also do a topography survey that we will use for the whole design of the project. We haven't gotten started yet on the geotechnical soil borings and potential infiltration testing, because we want to get that survey done, but that'll be starting up in the near future as well. So, I've put a lot of stuff in here about the stakeholder meeting and what our ideas were, but we just want to get diverse ideas from a eclectic group of interested parties in Lewis. Not only just the people that live in the corridor, but also because there's so many different uses down in that area, we want to get those folks. And really just citizens of Lewis and anybody else that has an interest. And I'll be working with Anne Marie and the rest of the staff to develop that list of attendees. And
when do you anticipate having
so
that
we're hoping
meeting?
to have that done before the end of the year, is what our goal is. So November, late November, early December. I know December gets funny with everything.
I think you're not going to have a public meeting until January.
Well, it's possible, Mayor.
I just, by the time when you get to Thanksgiving, Christmas is on top of it.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And that could certainly be true, but that won't hold us up too much, I don't think, Mayor.
Okay.
So we anticipate having like a tabletop workshop with two different groups. What I was envisioning was a group of local property owners in the area first, and then everybody else in a second group, or several second groups and several first groups, and get all their ideas on a plan. And I'll have a staff member there that utilizes what's known as InfraWorks conceptual design. Don't ask me anything about that. But what it basically does is that she can take those ideas and immediately get them on the computer, so we have them saved for our use in preparing the final design. After we get the residents' ideas and the other users' ideas, let me know if you think this is a good idea. I think it's a good idea. We're going to intermingle the two and go through the whole thing again and see what pops out of those intermingled groups. And I see that as perhaps where we get the collaboration and like a whole view of the whole thing. So that's my idea for that. Again, we'll get all those ideas saved so that we can utilize them in the final design.
Next slide.
Sorry. So I just, nothing new here, other than we are just milling and overlaying Adams Avenue, so that dropped the cost down for the Adams Avenue piece, I think by $30,000 from what it was the last time. So like in 2 months period of time, I saved you $30,000. So anyway, the Monroe Adams Railroad Corridor for the city is $971, and what we have budgeted for the board for the whole corridor is $1 million. And a lot of the details of what's required for the board side and obviously the city side on the top surface side stuff, all that needs to still be developed. So we're just getting started on the project.
Charlie, you say we're only milling and overlaying the Adams Avenue. We've had some pavement cuts for the new hookup for the sewer.
Yeah.
Is that all going to be covered, the repair of that all going to be covered in the contract for the bathrooms?
Yes, supposed to be, yes.
Okay, because there's quite a bit of cutting that's gone on into the street, into the parking area there in front of the museum, in front of the Rollins Center.
Yeah, let me look at that, Mayor, because I think I probably just specified the trench repair, the standard city trench repair. So if we want to add this mill and overlay down to kind of get rid of those patches.
I think you ought to. We've patchworked that street so many times.
Yeah, no, you're right, yeah.
And when we came across the trail and did all that, and it ought to look like it's unified.
We'll make sure that happens, Mayor.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
You just added $30,000 back into the job.
Well, good thing you saved us.
Yeah, right. All right, so that's where we are on that project. More to come, obviously, and all you guys will be invited to the workshop as well.
And I do want to just add, I know we talked about breaking the project up over 2 fiscal years. So for the construction purpose, we will. But when Charlie and I talked about it, we thought it was important to have the design all as one because it flows as one. And we didn't think it was, we thought especially because of the need for the community outreach with this, we thought it was best to do one planning design project and then phase it in terms of construction.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Moving on to, next slide, please. right now, we're completing Phase 25, that's what the ship carpenter job is. So Phase 26 would be the second part of the 5-year capital improvement plan for streets. You've seen this before. It includes 4th Street from Park Avenue to Chestnut Street, and then Marina Drive from University Drive to Pilottown Road. That's just the first block off of Pilottown Road. Just so you know, in year 3, Chestnut Street to Savannah Road is on the list for 4th Street, so that whole section will be done after 2 years' time. I couldn't remember, Anne-Marie, whether we had decided to do it in the spring or the fall. I thought the fall of 2022.
I think we should do it in the fall,
Yeah.
because I think that gives us the time to get the design stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Would that be just for the Chestnut Street job?
Well, the 4th and Marina, the 4th Street and
A
the...
and B?
Yes.
Yes.
Because that would all be bid as one project.
Yes.
The Monroe and all of that whole Monroe Adams Railroad will be bid separately.
And remember, this is all related back to our street maintenance schedule, where we're keeping the average of the pavement condition index at 64 or higher, and we're trying to minimize the percentage of streets that fall into the full rebuild category with a pavement condition index of less than 40.
So I'm just going to bring up something, and Mayor, we've had contact from the Pilottown Village HOA.
Ironically, I was just about to bring that up.
Okay. And Kenny Morris was actually stopped by somebody who lives in one of the cul-de-sacs asking when they're going to get repaved. So I know that their PCI rating was higher than some of these, and so I think we have some people over there who are not happy. Now, one thing is, Phase 25 and Phase 26, we are doing smaller scope projects because we have the Monroe Adams Railroad, and the idea is once we're done that larger project, we can increase the amount that we're spending each year on the normal phases.
I would agree with the idea of that. I would only suggest that we watch what happens with what's going on with the federal budget. If the Build Back Better program gets funded where it goes for infrastructure, then we need to be in a position where we can move.
And I think we will be.
But we're definitely in a position. Anytime you want a list of, well, we got the list, so.
Well, but we haven't done anything about Pilottown Village in terms of planning that.
Engineering it?
No, and I mean, if it's a shovel-ready thing like it was in...
I suspect it will be.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot to those plans.
They're primarily going to be mill and overlay.
Well, there's some drainage issues out there too, so.
That's the question I was going to raise, and that is on the portion of the job that would address, God, my brain just froze. I'm sorry, I didn't sleep well again last night. Marina Drive. This improvement here does not affect, or does it affect the drainage, the catch basins and so forth that are along Marina? Is any of that being addressed in this?
No, this is just simply a mill and overlay. It won't affect the drainage at all because it's going to be the exact same street.
Right, and I guess that's really one of my questions is that, have you done any evaluation of that drainage, the ditch line that runs parallel to Marina there, and how its functionality?
The ditch line, are you talking about the ditch itself or
The swale, yeah.
It is a swale, and it's quite deep, it's quite steep, actually, and there are drain boxes that...
At the corners.
Yeah, and I think they might need some attention. And if you're going to be even if you're just doing the road work, it seems to me the integrity of the road might be affected by the drainage that's adjacent.
So Austin and Charlie and I can look at that.
I would encourage you to do that.
I know what Tim's talking about, it pools up there.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
That,
That front section all drains to the canal, and the back section goes into bioswales. When you get to Powhatan Reserve,
Right.
all goes to bioswales.
Right, but we're talking only between 4th Street and Pilot Town Road.
That's
on
right.
Marina.
That all drains to the canal.
Right, right. Okay. Good.
Fisher Martin House, can we go to the next slide? So we're going to need Morgan again and Allison.
I think I just saw Allison. Oh, there she is.
She's here. So Morgan, you still with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just to kind of tee this up, there are a number of things that need to be addressed with the Fisher Martin House. Allison has reached out to a number of contractors, including a list of all of the contractors that the State Historic Preservation Office has on their list of contractors that deal with historic buildings. We have gotten very little response from contractors. So we, at this point, Harper & Sons has the contract for the Rollins Center restroom. We had them give us a proposal for some of the high priority items that need to be done. When we met to review in detail that proposal, and that comes to about $36,000. But what that doesn't include is a full structural review and a full review of kind of everything that needs to be done. There are areas that absolutely need to be addressed in the short term, but the question is, how much does council want us to invest in doing, bringing on a structural engineer to do a structural assessment, and then doing kind of more intense, longer-term fixes rather than, there are sashes that need to be replaced, there are windows that leak, we have to deal with that. But, when you get into a building that old, you don't know what's going to happen once you open some of the walls.
I think there's several things that need to be said. I don't know if everybody's on the same page. First of all, this is a state-owned building that was gifted to the city, and we have to maintain it according to state history and cultural affairs.
Okay.
We're under obligation to do that. So we cannot do anything significantly to it, to alter it. We can't go in with synthetic materials and all that kind of stuff. We have to maintain this building. It was a historic building. It was gifted to the city with the idea that it would be open to the public. And that's why the chamber is there, because the city was not in a position to keep it open to the public.
So where are the other conditions?
We have to maintain it.
Okay, so
And they have to sign off on what we do to it.
And do they help fund it?
They are not interested at this
Can we
point.
talk about that? Because we have had a number of exchanges with the State Historic Preservation Office, and they have kind of washed their hands of it.
They have.
Seriously?
Yes, they have. I went and talked to them. I talked to several people at the state because I was trying to get the process. What do we need to submit? What do we need to do? And they came back and said, you know what? It's your building. You can go through your processes, but the state, if you want guidance or you want suggestions, they will give you guidance, suggestions, but they're not going to sign off on anything.
Okay.
They're not going to approve
So
anything.
there's no financial help there?
No.
Well, there is. We have monies. We have, how much money do we have?
Almost 35,000.
We have $35,000 that was put together in a stock that was given to the city to care for that building.
Okay.
So we do have monies already sitting allocated to that building.
Okay, but that 35,000 versus what we think is the ratio.
Well,
is nothing.
It's not going to
So
get
what we're calling the Band-Aids.
Right.
What we're calling the Band-Aids
This
amount
isn't even
to
a Band-Aid.
$36,000. And again, once, if we go with Harper & Sons to do this scope that's $36,000, there's an area where we know that they need to deal with some rot under a window where there's been leaking, but
Is this something H-Park could help us with?
No.
I have a question. Morgan, are you on with us right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and have you had an opportunity to make an evaluation of the building yourself? You're an architect, as I recall, is that correct?
Yes, so we haven't done that yet. We just provided a proposal to the city to do that both structurally, architecturally, and mechanically.
I see.
You may not need to do all of that holistically. For instance, maybe you're just concerned with the framing and foundation of the structure, so we could look at it from a structural standpoint. However, there's some finishes that need to be addressed on the inside. And then if you needed to look at it from a life safety standpoint, we could also look at it holistically. I think the conversation Anne Marie was suggesting is, do we spend the money to do the Band-Aid if we have $35,000 with Harper and Sons and then have to turn around and then redo a whole new roof, however many years later?
Right.
So
Well,
we
one of
haven't
the
really done
statements
that
I'll make
analysis
is,
yet, but it's on the table.
right, thank you. One of the statements I'll remind us all is that when we break the 25,000 K ceiling on a bid, we're required to have a competitive bid. So we're not prepared to do anything here.
This we actually, because we have a contract with Harper and Sons, we asked them to look at it, and that we would do it as a change order on the current scope to add this.
Well, that's a nice accommodation that they would provide for us, but I do like the idea of us preparing a proper RFP where we are clearly stating what we are trying to accomplish and what will be the end goal, and in turn go to market and get competitive bids. I respect the quality of the work. I think that they're doing at the Rollins Center. I would welcome them to enter into a competitive bid situation, but I'm not prepared to just roll over on this one.
You also said that there's a certain requirement they have to meet with the state in terms of the ability to do it as a preservationist.
Well, so the state has said, and that's what we thought, and they had said no.
Can we get that in writing from them? Because they might want to.
She has it in an email.
Maybe is it deeded to us?
It was gifted.
Yes, so we do have documents where it was moved from the city to, from the state to the city, so we do have documents saying that, okay, this is now city property. And I gave all that documents to the state, and we reviewed them, and I guess because it was so long ago, they just don't have anything more to do with it.
There was even a legislative bill passed that addressed this, and we sent that to them, and they pretty much have said that they're not interested.
Did I hear that it had something to do?
Because it's been relocated, the structure itself's been relocated?
It was relocated back when all of that happened.
Okay.
Yeah, the foundation of this building was built in, it was a brand-new foundation that was put in when it was moved here. So the question of the foundation is probably a moot point. It's less than 50 years old. And I would.
Well, I think the question on the foundation is actually that it's sitting in wood and it is graded up against that wood. So it's not, at least from the pictures that Allison sent.
It's actually sitting on a brick foundation.
Without the analysis. I'm not so sure it actually does have a true foundation there.
Jack Vessels was a part of the instrument of moving it there, and I think he put it on a brick foundation. I can't imagine in the 80s or 70s, when they moved it there, they would have put it on, just down on wood. That needs to be further investigated.
Well, and that would be part of, again, that's where Morgan's provided us a scope that would have structural and architectural evaluation that would address all of these things. The question is, and I think just for clarification, Tim, we're not asking to award anything to Harper and Sons now. What we're looking for is, do we want to proceed with the Band-Aid, or do we want to go the route of getting the structural and architectural evaluation and determine the full scope so that we're not fixing the things that need to be fixed now, only for 5 years from now to have other things come up that need to be addressed. And I think that's the question we're putting before you.
We're going to end up like with the police.
Well, the only thing I would say is the building is inhabited now, and it's got significant things going on inside of it. It will become uninhabitable if we don't do something soon. This deed has been known for a year and a half. Okay? And we're just now seriously talking about it.
Well, let me clarify, we're not just now seriously talking about it. At the staff level, it has been worked on for the last year and a half. Multiple contractors have been brought out, walked through, we've asked for quotes for work. Some of the work didn't meet what needs to be done, and frankly, most of the contractors that have been contacted have not had interest in submitting a proposal. In addition, Allison has spent months sorting out with the State Historic Preservation Office the level of involvement that they want, because when you look at the record, based on when this was donated to the city, the expectation based on all of that is that there's a process, there's something we need to do with them. And even getting a response from them for a period of time was very difficult. So, I mean, this isn't something that has sat, not worked on for the last year. It's been very difficult to get responses from contractors and from the state.
Point accepted, but I think we don't have the luxury of kicking this can down the road any further, because the building is becoming less and less inhabitable.
Well, and this is exactly why when we met to go through this scope and this proposal from Harper and Sons, this is exactly why we got into the discussion of, the larger structural evaluation, but we know that there are things that need to be taken care of, so that's why we wanted to bring it to you to determine, do you want us to start on the Band-Aids, or do you want us to work on a structural evaluation? And I don't know, Morgan, I guess from your perspective, is there a way to do a little of both?
And I have another question for you, Morgan. In your response to Anne Marie's question, you or Charlie, can you advise us what our costs would be for the studies that you've suggested that might be beneficial? In other words, architectural, the structural, and I forget what the third one was. The
Mechanical. So you sent me a proposal yesterday. I do not have it. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
So
the total proposal is $7,700. It includes architectural, structural, and MEP to look at the building holistically.
Okay.
That would have a code analysis as well, since you are using it as a public facility. I think the Chamber of Commerce. So right now, I'm not so sure it kind of meets those criteria as well.
Right.
If you'd like to take out and just do the structural, that's $1,500. The mechanical is $2,500. So that should give you a range if you want to take those two, or, kind of just do a piecemeal of that. The question that I have, we weren't really involved in the determination from the state of not considering this a historic structure that's on the federal register. So that may be the case that the state may walk away from this, but the conversation I think that makes it more difficult to get quotes right now is that when you tell a contractor that it's a historic structure, you have to do the construction in a historic manner. So Harper and Sons is fully aware of that. That's why their proposal was drafted in a specific way, that it's actually being built back in that same historic manner, which is quite more labor intensive than as if you would do it now. So I think we need to just clarify when we do go out to competitive bids how we really want to address the construction. For instance, we could still do the historic materials on the exterior, but have the structure or the insulation still be put back, and the rest of the construction be done in conventional means that would meet today's typical labor and installation guidelines.
Right.
So that would be a question for you also, if it really needs to be done in a historic manner, with the city's historic, district guidelines, holistically, or if that's just a material situation on the exterior. And
The
how
city's
far do we
historic
take that?
preservation process only looks at the
Only looks at
outside.
exterior.
So they wouldn't look at the interior. So interior, and I think that's really where we may need to go back to SHPO and say, what is the expectation? Because I think part of the thing is, again, this 36,000 is going with, keeping it at inside and out, historic, where they could use some more durable materials on the inside depending on the standard, and that's where, and that's where they were prepared to go before the state. Harper and Sons has done similar projects in Maryland, and they're accustomed to going before the state.
I think the standard will only apply to the exterior of the building, which means windows and doors, as well as other things. So, if you want to do the structural, the mechanical, your mechanical's not going to be historical. It's, come on.
I think
Let's be realistic.
it gives some examples more. My mind's shot. You mentioned some things on the interior that could save us money if we did it with different materials.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. The patch that Harper and Sons has in their quote is doing it with the strips of wood literally attached where you see all of the construction from the underside, versus if you're going to do a roof replacement where you just keep the exterior material in a historic manner, you could then infill that with insulation and do the water and vapor barrier and all of those other things to have a true roof assembly in more of a, current manner, if that's an appropriate way. That's one example. The other example is the historic windows. I've done different historic districts. For instance, Wacomico County, we did the state courthouse. They actually approved a synthetic slate material, but you have to actually bring the material to the board so they can touch it and feel it and see, if they would approve it. There's things like windows that are more energy efficient, that emulate historic windows, that don't necessarily have just the single pane without any energy saving whatsoever. Those types of things can all be looked at with your historic district to see if they would.
One of the things in an energy grant that we received that was done was all of those windows over there have gotten interior storms. They were retrofitted with interior storms, and that's within the last 10 to 12 years, which is part of what's causing the problem, because the exterior sashes are creating condensation. And so, there's a lot of ways to look at this. I have no objection to doing a structural inspection. I'm not sure that what you're going to get from a mechanical inspection. Those systems are relatively new. I'm quite certain that the building sits on a brick foundation. It may be a grading problem more than a structural problem. If we go around the back of that building, I think you'll find that the brick foundation is exposed. So,
Can someone explain to me, it doesn't appear that the Lewis Historical Society has a connection to this building.
They do not.
No, they don't.
Why not?
because it's a city building.
It was gifted to the city.
But Lewis Historical Society is involved in a lot of various entities. Is this simply because the city has it, the city upkeep keeps the...
Right.
Yes, and then our tenant is the chamber.
Right.
So, there's no...
There's no LHS connection at all.
So they get to pick and choose what they want to be involved in, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
The LHS probably was very young, LHS was probably very young when this building was gifted to the city. And so it was gifted to the city directly.
In terms of any refurbishment, I don't feel comfortable as a council person making the calls on whether we should use newer materials or not. I think we could fall into some criticism if we take a building like this and start modernizing it too much.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the big question is, do we want to get the structural assessment and the architectural assessment? And
what timeline would that take, Morgan? You're muted again.
The structural is, their group is pretty busy, so I'm guessing it would be about 4 weeks for them to get that completed, and I know that that's probably not what you wanted to hear.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's not an unreasonable amount of time. If you told us 6 months, I'd have another problem, but 4 months or 4 weeks is not an unreasonable.
And the structural component evaluation, would that include the foundation, an analysis of that? Is that correct?
Yeah, they can put the foundation pretty well from the outside, so I believe it would be first floor framing, second floor framing, the roof framing, and the foundation.
And then the architectural, that's more the materials and stuff?
It is. It also would give you an idea of any deficiencies that the building has from a code perspective, since you are using it in a public standpoint.
I think the chamber has gone about, there's no ramp to the building, there is one step, so I understand what you're saying, but the chamber is only using the first floor open to the public. The second floor is restricted to administrative staff use. So, and certainly that staircase that winds around the chimney will never be ADA compliant.
Yeah, I heard it's not a fun climb.
I've done it many times. It's not awful, but it is what it is. Okay, so are we agreeing that we should go ahead with a structural and an architectural inspection?
But not a mechanical.
Yeah, I don't see why you would do that.
Okay.
May I, before we act on that, I apologize, Khalil, this is a real quick one. I do want to ask the engineers, are we missing something by not doing the mechanical inspection? I mean, I know we're missing the expense, but are we overlooking something that is obvious to you that is not apparent to us?
No, I had included it because we had already had, Allison had identified some other things in some other buildings, the town hall and then the break room building that needed to kind of be addressed. So I had included it just as an option in case you were starting that whole list of capital projects, so that you could have a life cycle assessment and see at least when the suggested repairs, replacement, and costs of those would be more from a future.
Right, and anecdotally, no one has mentioned to you that there are problems with the mechanical systems, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
No, sir, yep.
Within the last 10 years, the chamber has refurbished the second floor of that building, and I know there were electrical upgrades done at the time.
Okay.
Need a vote on that, or?
I think, are we in agreement at this point?
I mean, if I'm seeing a general sense of the group that we need to move forward with the architectural and structural,
Yes.
I'll move ahead, and
Yeah,
Morgan,
that's
if you
fine.
can then revise the proposal, I'll sign it and send it back.
Yeah, that's
And then,
great, thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
Cleo's got to leave, so we got to get this done.
so
Okay.
let's talk very quickly about the Marina and City Dock.
Right.
So there was a, GMB did an assessment of the Marina and dock, and again, this is more for planning for next year's purposes. So, I mean, basically, the big thing is that the dock boards,
The decking.
the decking needs to be replaced, not at City Dock, right?
No. We're only talking about
Our
Canalfront.
assessment had a whole bunch of maintenance items.
Right.
And then I just broke out on this PowerPoint slide what the capital projects were.
On the city dock, we felt like you could, maintain by flipping the existing decking for a few years until the city found that it was not aesthetically pleasing anymore and go with that. If you were to replace the whole city dock, it would be $60,000, the decking of it. So we came up with that.
And this is also for this white cedar that you referred to down here, saying.
No, I think it's different on the city dock.
It's e-pay.
Yeah.
It's e-pay on the city dock. I'd be surprised if that's,
$60,000 jump on it.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, and you know what, we did this report, probably submitted it in January of this year
Right.
before all the supply side.
Right.
and everything.
But none of these numbers are accurate.
Well, they're probably a little bit off, Mayor. I just thought of that when I was looking at it. And then on the canal front side, the same thing with that's where the way cedar decking is, and that's another one where we felt like you could make it through for a number of years just by flipping the decking on them.
I think we flipped all we can.
It's done flipping.
I think
You're not going to flip it.
Yeah, there's only two sides, and it's been flipped multiple times, so I do think that that's a replacement. In terms of the maintenance items, I know that our dock master has been working on the maintenance items that don't rise to the level of capital. But I mean, I think, the whole assessment, if you recall, started when we actually had a proposed capital project to replace the decking at Canalfront Park Marina. So I think we're back to kind of where we started, that we need to, in terms of preparing for next year's budget, prepare for and get updated cost estimates for replacing the decking.
Yeah, it's hard to beyond aesthetics at this point.
Well, it is beyond aesthetics, and at this point, I'll just make mention of the fact that this whole system, the whole Canalfront Park decking, and the whole marina system and the overlook was largely gifted to the city by Friends of Canalfront Park and lots of philanthropic organizations that made tens of millions of dollars worth of improvements to that park, and they are interested in, they're aware that this is needing to be replaced, they're interested in going back with natural materials, and they have expressed a willingness to help with this project of redecking.
And I think I brought up before, this could be another potential community project. I think there's enough people here in Lewis with skills that use that park that I think would be willing to put in some sweat equity.
Absolutely. We got to wonder about, I agree with you, it's a great idea, Andrew, but you want to make sure it looks professional.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that we're frequently complimented about Canalfront Park, is that it's a very professional-looking park. We've got a lot of talented people in this area, and if they want to help, that's great. But we want to make sure that we got a professional look with what we do, okay?
Do you feel the same way about the decking at the city dock, that it should be replaced as well?
That has not been turned.
Okay.
So I think that could be turned.
Actually, I want to speak to that. I went to a walkthrough to these, both the city dock and the marina, and the question I have about the city dock is the use of different fasteners for the epay that's there, and I'm wondering about the long-term damage that might have been caused to the deck material by the use of different kinds of
I think they're all needed.
fasteners.
I don't know the answer to that.
And the other thing is that City Dock, we have a ramp that is pulling away from the, what is that called there? That would be called the,
landing area?
Say what?
The landing or?
Yeah,
It's the gangway, the aluminum gangway joins the mainland, if you will, and it is in need of serious attention.
So we did a minor repair on that
That's
to
correct.
kind of secure it. I have a call into Precision Marine to give us an estimate on the repair of that, because it is a safety issue, obviously. So it's on the list, and they're going to come out either the end of October or early November. We were waiting until the docks were not in high use.
Sure.
Because they'll have to lift that up and get under there.
Correct. And this is not going to be inexpensive. I'm almost certain this repair is not going to be inexpensive. I'm going to speak to you about that offline.
Okay.
too,
Yeah, I have no idea at this point until they come in and really take a good look at it.
One thing we talked about was whether a job would work out like a state, like could this one be done this year, this one next year kind of thing. Is that, does he have?
Well, I think City Dock is critical, because we kind of did a Band-Aid on it, and that was right before I started with the city last year. As far as Canalfront Park Marina and those landings on the dock, I think if we're looking at replacing those boards, Precision Marine had said that what we could do there was put a metal plate down versus putting the gangway right down on boards. Right. So,
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Because that cedar is too soft, even if we use EPA, it's too soft to have the weight of that going up and down on it.
right.
Okay, great. All right, and then,
But Schley Avenue Master Plan, as you know, Mayor, there's nothing to report because we still have to meet with BPW.
I think we have that meeting slated for next month, don't we?
We talked about it, I don't think it's on the schedule yet.
No, but I mean, we talked about doing something initially next month. Okay, great. Good. Been a productive conversation here this morning. Charlie, you have anything else for us? Okay, great. Chip, thank you for sitting through this long protracted meeting. Always good to see you. I know you had a heck of a commute to get here.
I hope you didn't get stuck in traffic.
But you gave up a beautiful morning to be outside, so. I know you're always out. Okay. If there's nothing further to bring forward, I think we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
To be continued.
Yep.
We may need to make a motion.
No, we're done.
No, we don't have to do that.
Thanks, Andrew. Got a minute?
Was that to me or to you?
No, to Cheryl.
Either you or Ben. The only reason I said.
Yeah, thanks.
Was because